All right, Part 10, Part 222, the use of locomotive horns at the public highway, railway, grade crossing, general operational practice. Inspector has been tasked with conducting inspection of Title 49 CFR Part 322, public highway, grade crossing, inspecting public crossings that have an important impact on the public safety, employee safety, nationwide knowledge of the regulation associated with the crossing inspection, new contact with the railroad within the inspected territory in the case of the problem, are two essential elements of the crossing inspection. Inspection of the use of the locomotive horns of the public highway, gradeway crossing are important to the FRA safety mission. The horn rule can be reviewed by the FRA website at fra.downloads.safety.train rule 2005 amended final ruling 0081706 PDF guidance. Operational practice. Inspector conducting inspections to verify the compliance with the train horn rule must plan to the inspection observe the locomotive engineer. Locomotive consists of the individual locomotive sounding the train horn to approach the public highway railway crossing, including the observing whether the whistle is sounding with the lead locomotive occupies the grade crossing as verifies the train and the marker of the rear car and the rear headlight illuminated with the locomotive consists of the required railroad operating rules of federal regulations. Inspectors should work with the region's grade crossing managers for the handling complaints of the non-railroad routine grade crossing while in issuing. Inspectors should observe the flashing of the lights and gates of the function as intended with the crossing and equipped with the flashing lights and gates. Inspectors must report the condition of damaged cross-arm gates, the burned out flashlights directly into the railroad. Their regional signals will train control specialists. Inspectors should take a notice the condition of the crossbuck in the crossing, noting the equipped with the flashlights and gates as the crossbuck and signs of the damage beyond recognition in the ditch. Inspectors must report the condition of the damage to the crossbuck sighted with the crossing and directly in the railroad. If the inspector calls for the toll-free telephone number posted in the crossing, no one answered the phone call. The information should be noted, but the inspector will report also all crossing potential work site of the train crew. The train crew may be relieved of duty in the crossover. The crew members may have the crossing under the circumstances if the inspector observed with the old cross planks and exposed with the crossing spikes other than damaged debris near the crossing. The inspector should consider recording the non-FRA defective regarding the specific railroad safety rule on the inspection report. Suggested routine inspection report. Example for the monitoring the compliance with the train horn rule. Description. Comment the railroad company 220 activity. I observed the Nebraska train leading locomotive Nebraska 1234 south, blowing the whistle and ringing the bell with the headlight ditched and the headlights illuminated, approaching the main street crossing in Centerville, Nebraska, U.S. dot number 1234556A and MP 919818.8 GCOR 58.27 49 CFR 22221 222 when the purpose of the regulation is to provide with the safety and the public highway railway grade crossing with requiring locomotive horn with the public highway railway grade crossing except for the quiet zone established maintained in accordance with this regulation. 222.21 when the locomotive horn be used, the inspector should observe the locomotive horn of the locomotive of the train. The locomotive consists of the individual locomotive of the lead cab car assigned with the locomotive of the lead cab car approaching with the public highway grade crossing sounding the locomotive horn within two long blasts, one short blast, and one long blast, but should be indicated with the location in accordance with the regulation. The sequence should be repeated and prolonged until the locomotive occupies the crossing. This pattern may be verified and necessary when the crossing are spaced closely together, except provided with the regulation, including locomotive horn is defective. With the locomotive horn shall begin with the sound at least 15 seconds, but not more than 20 seconds before the locomotive enters the crossing. No, if this shall constitute the violation section, if acting in good faith, the locomotive engineer begins with the sounding of the horn not more than 25 seconds before the locomotive enters the crossing. The locomotive engineer is unable to precisely estimate the time of the arrival of the train at the crossing at any reason. The train locomotive consists of the individual locomotives running at the speed of 60 miles an hour should not begin with the sounding of the horn 1/4 of a mile in advance of near the public highway railway crossing. Even an advance warning provided with the locomotive horn will be less than 15 seconds in duration. As stated with the statute 222.3, the section does not apply with the Chicago Region Highway Railway grade crossing, which the railroad were excused from sound locomotive horn by Illinois Commerce Commission, and where railroads did not sound the horn on December 18, 2003. Train locomotives consist of individual locomotives that have been stopped in the close of the proximity of the public highway grade crossing, making an approach with the crossing sound of locomotive horn less than 15 seconds before the locomotive enters the highway grade crossing. The locomotive engineer is able to determine the public highway railway grade crossing is not obstructed. Either the public highway railway crossing is equipped with automatic flashlights and gates, and the gates are fully lowered. There are no conflicting highway movements approaching the public highway railway grade crossing. Statute 223. How does regulation affect the sound of the the horn during the emergency or other situation. Prior to taking an exemption of the train sounding of the horn in the quiet zone, inspectors should interview with the locomotive engineer involved, the road manager, if practicable, determine if the locomotive engineer sound locomotive to provide with a warning regarding the animals, vehicles, operators, pedestrians, road workers, trespassers, crews are on the train to perceive an emergency situation. If the locomotive engineering sold to admit the train horn needed to be sounded in order to prevent the imminent injury, death, or property damage, then the FRA will generally accept the action as appropriate. Inspectors should work with the region, the grade crossing, the managers regarding the issues. Note the regulation does not impose the legal duty to the sound locomotive horn in the situation. Nothing in the section restricts the locomotive horn in the following situation. When a wayside horn is malfunctioned, when the active grade crossing warning device is malfunctioned, use the horn required of the following section: 234, 105, 234, 106, 231, and 107. When the grade crossing warning system are temporarily out of service during the inspection, maintenance, testing of the system, when supplemental safety measures are SSMs and supplemental safety measures, modified supplemental safety measures, engineering supplemental safety measures no longer comply with the requirements set forth in Appendix A of the Part 222 and the conditions were named the Associated Administrator of the Railroad for Railroad Safety and Safety Officer decision to approve the quiet zone in accordance with Statute 22039B. All right, 225. How does the rule affect the private highway grade crossing? The rule does not require the routine sounding locomotive horns of private highway grade crossing, such as found in the farmer's field. However, this is where the state requires the sounding locomotive horn of the private highway railway grade crossing locomotive horn shall be sounded in accordance with Statute 222-21. And 222-27, how does the rail rule affect pedestrian grade crossing? The rule does not require the routine sounding locomotives at a pedestrian grade crossing. However, the state law requires sounding locomotive horn at the pedestrian grade crossing. Locomotive horn shall sound in accordance with statutes 222-21. Page left intentionally blank. Insert chapter here. And chapter 11, part 225, road accidents report, classification, investigation. And we'll read that later.